My name is Fredy Hirsch. I am a good man. Please be so kind as to remember my name.
When you say that, when you read that, and when I read that, please remember my name. Even now, it makes me cry.
Yes.
Because it's one individual, and everyone who was killed by the Nazis was a person, and they had a name, and just the way you've written that, it pulls at your heart. Honestly, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's very important because I won't be revealing the ending of the book or what happened to Fredy, because I don't want to. I want people to come to that themselves. But what you do need to know is that after the war, when the communists took over, he was really denigrated by the communists for several reasons, mainly for being a homosexual, I think, but also because they called him a collaborator with the Nazis. Well, of course he collaborated with the Nazis. He had to collaborate with the Nazis to keep the children alive. He went up to them, he went to their offices, he approached, even Adolf Eichmann came to the camp, and he approached him directly and asked for a guarantee that the children would be saved from the next transport. He risked everything to do that. I mean, Adolf Eichmann could have pulled out his pistol and just shot him there and then, and would very likely have done so. But he refused to be a bystander to evil. He refused to be a bystander to the hate. He was a beacon of hope and light in a very, very dark place. And he absolutely, it seems to me, never thought about his own self and his own needs, his own desires, and what he might want and what he might want after the war. It was all just about the children. It became his passion. I suppose it became his way of dealing with the horror, the unspeakable horror that nobody can imagine, and the daily horror, that was happening every single day there, and the number of people that were dying from typhus. He became obsessed about hygiene. He had the children. He realized quickly that all the people that were dying of typhus weren't caring for themselves. They weren't making sure that the lice weren't on them, that they could give them the typhus. So he became obsessed about that. He started that regime in Terezin. He had nurses and doctors come and check and comb through hair and comb through clothing and check all the bedding and the mattresses. He made them wash every single day, even if the water was frozen and they had to break the ice in the buckets. He made them roll in the snow. He was absolutely determined to keep them alive, and he never lost a single child in his care to disease when thousands were dying around him. So he was thinking about everything. He taught them meditation. I mean, we think of that as being such a modern day mindfulness, sort of ethos that we only think about now, but he taught them to meditate, to lie quietly or sit quietly in a corner and close their eyes and imagine that their bellies were full and they weren't hungry, or to imagine that they weren't afraid, or to imagine that they didn't know where the smoke was coming from in the chimneys. He was extraordinary. He taught them games of freeze, so run somewhere, and then he shouted freeze and they had to freeze. And he did it because he knew that there might come a time when, if they were able to escape from the camp, he would have in charge of hundreds and hundreds of children, and he would have to have them disciplined. He told somebody they need to be a little afraid of me. When the lady painted the walls with Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and these drab, dark barracks, she also painted he had a little, like a groom's room. It used to be a stable, that block, and there was a little groom's room at the back, and she even painted the groom's room, and she said, "What do you want me to put on there?" And he said, "Hansel and Gretel and the Wicked Witch at the door," because he wanted the children to think of him a little bit like that, although he loved them and he hugged them and he was so great with them, he also wanted them to be afraid of him. And even towards the end, when the children were being selected for various things, and one little boy was told to say that he was unwell and he would have to go to the infirmary because that was a good chance of sort of saving him. He looked at the person who was telling that and said, "No, I can't do that. That would be lying." And Fredy says, "We mustn't lie." Just wonderful. He was just such a hero, really, in terms of how he behaved and the example that he gave to them.